Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Joseph Jude, CTO at Net Solutions. We are here to explore a big shift that's happening in digital commerce. How AI agents and emerging technologies like MCP are transforming e-commerce stores into systems that think, act, and deliver smarter experiences. I'm delighted to have with me Sana Remekie, CEO and co-founder of Consia, a leader in data orchestration for commerce. Sana, thank you so much for joining us. Could you
You're very
start,
welcome. Happy to.
could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about Consia?
Yes, sure. So my name is Sana Remekie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Consia. Consia is also a member of the MOC Alliance. And we're very excited to participate in this webinar and talk about the new world of agentic commerce and what orchestration and MCP servers have to do with that world.
Let's start with the name of your company. It is very intriguing. What does Consia mean?
So, good question. I have been asked that a few times, especially because the spelling of Consia is so confusing. We hear, Consica and Concha, and Consia is actually great that you actually said it that way. So, Consia actually comes from the word consciousness, and consciousness is all about knowledge, and knowledge comes from a whole ton of different places. So when it comes to the world of agentic commerce, you can think of Consia as the brain that connects to all of the various enterprise systems that hold the data and the knowledge about the customer, about the services that one provides, and it's able to unify all of that knowledge to present to deliver amazing experiences, personalized experiences to the customer.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that. Sana, let's start with what is the agentic AI? There is a lot of hype and hope about agentic AI. So can you
Right.
give us a perspective of the current state of agentic AI? Where is it genuinely useful in commerce today and where it is still overhyped?
So I think there's a little bit of both. There is genuine excitement and there's a genuine roadmap to agentic commerce, but there is also a lot of hype. From a hype standpoint, which is always the fun part to talk about, everybody feels all ISVs, all SIs at this point feel that they have to reposition their company and reimagine their brand because everybody's talking about AI. So why not? Why not say that we have agentic capabilities? Now, the word agent actually means that it's a system that decides intelligently what actions to take and how to deliver the results of those actions to the user or the consumer. Agentic AI in the world of e-commerce is about allowing agents that are autonomous systems to do something for you, right? And that something is about maybe purchasing something for you, booking a meeting for you, booking a service appointment for you, given certain constraints, given your context, given by telling it who you are, what your preferences are. So it goes and decides where to look for that information, or where to buy those products, where to set up an appointment for you, maybe at a bank branch location, etc. So that's the holy grail, right? We want to get to a point where our personal agents know us well enough that they can actually act and think on our behalf, and we don't have to do the everyday mundane tasks of looking through or surfing through tons and tons of web pages and figuring out what's the best jacket out there in all of the brands that I like that I may want to buy, for instance. Or if I'm trying to book a hair appointment, I have 2 or 3 preferred salons, let the agent go and figure out an appointment that works with my calendar rather than me getting on a call myself and doing it for myself.
Okay. So now you use the word autonomous. So far, with respect to the digital commerce, the digital directors are used to a rule-based system. Now,
Right.
these rule-based systems can be tested very thoroughly, multiple times. You can test them in whatever ways. It'll all work according to the rules that have been defined. There's a logic behind how it is working.
Hmm.
Now, with this AI, it is all probabilistic systems, which
Right.
means when we are releasing that into production in front of the customers, we don't know how they will behave. So that's one of the big concern when we talk to some of the digital directors. So how do you balance out this innovation, bringing that innovation into the forefront with the risk of failing and failing big in front of the customers? So how do you balance that out? What have you seen?
So I've had these conversations quite a bit with our customers as well. There's definitely the risk of these systems completely going rogue and doing things that could actually destroy your brand
Yeah.
reputation as well. So there's a whole lot of benefit, but there is also the downside um, to these agentic systems. And I think the key is in the balance between agentic intelligence and deterministic control. Right. So I think that that's where the brands really need to understand what part of the customer workflow or the experience should really be controlled by agents, and
Mhm.
what part of that flow should they control fully so that they can present the best version of themselves to their customers. And there are certain elements of the experience where it makes sense for agents to be involved. For instance, if you're having a conversation with your customer to understand what their intent is, to understand what they're saying and what they may be looking for, is not something that is easily um, doable through a deterministic system. You need to understand natural language. You need to understand the context of the customer, where they are in relation to the world and what they may be looking for. So there's an element of creativity, an element of ambiguity that can't be translated very easily into rules, right? There would be thousands of rules if we start to go down that path. So you need to use AI and intelligence to figure that out. Now, what you do when you understand what that intent is addressed or is exposed through the AI system is something that can actually be deterministic, right? So if
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
that the customer is looking to buy and not looking for a support answer, then you can present them with a shopping experience, and you can present them with a set of products that make sense for that particular intent. So there is a concept of, you know, some structure here that needs to coincide with or interact with the outputs of AI. So that's how you would get that balance. You definitely don't want the agents to decide what backend system to call when the customer's intent is X. Oh, I should call Commerce Tools or Salesforce, or I should go and call the Vertex API to go get the tax for tax calculation. The agent should know nothing about the brand's backend systems. It should only understand what the customer wants and translate that to a set of capabilities that the brands expose in a clean and abstracted fashion, and go and call those tools to give the right answer or to commit the right action for the customer.
Okay. So one of the things that you talked about, a phrase that you talked about, is creativity and ambiguity. They
Yes.
both go hand in hand. and you feed intelligence also into that. So that's why the agent can understand the intent of the customer and then go and take some actions on it. Sana, you have worked with quite a lot of early adopters of agentic AI, and almost all of the digital directors, when they are going to go and implement, one of the things that they will be asked for any kind of these kinds of innovative implementation is that they are going to measure the implementation. So what are the leading and the lagging indicators that digital directors can keep in mind? Sometimes they need to be a little more relaxed on some of these indicators. Some of the other indicators they need to have a full control over. So what are those leading and the lagging indicators could be?
So you're thinking about the leading and lagging indicators when it comes to the ROI of
Yes.
AI,
Yes. Of
and whether
implementing
or
this.
not you're getting whether or not you're getting the return on
Yes.
investment.
Yes.
So I think that, and I'm going to say something radical here. AI is still very new,
Yeah.
or agents, not AI, but the agentic commerce is still very new. We know that in order to succeed, you need to catch the wave. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be taken over by the wave. So initially, there may actually be zero AI or zero ROI from the efforts that you put in. But what you really need to see is, am I moving in the right direction? Am I
Mm-hmm.
getting myself ready to adopt the new wave that is coming? Right? Because if you don't, and everybody else does, and your competitors are ready to adopt AI and are enabled and have the right foundation, you're already behind. So that the lagging and leading indicators are not necessarily tied directly to the current revenue, but by an AI readiness score. And the way you need to be ready for AI is that your architecture and your business it has to have the right mindset to be able to experiment quickly, to be able to adopt new technology quickly, right? So how do you experiment quickly? You experiment quickly if you don't get locked into specific vendors, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. If you
Mm-hmm.
go with a monolith that gives you all of the capabilities that you think you need right now, but you have a 10-year contract with them and you don't know that they are going to innovate or not. Are they going to keep up with the customer demands or not? That you lack agility, right?
Mm.
And that's why having a composable architecture is such an important aspect of all of this. Composability by nature allows you to be more agile. You take pieces of the architecture that are useful, you keep them. The pieces that are not useful, you replace them, right? And the monoliths don't allow you to do that, right? So I would say one of the leading indicators would be, am I ready to adopt the next wave, right? There's tons and tons of agentic platforms that are coming up day by day. That adoption of that also requires a composable mindset, right? If I say, hey, I'm just going to be using Agentforce for the rest of my life, I mean, you're not really ready to use any other agentic platform at that point, right? So you don't want to get stuck in one thing or the other. You want to be open for change, open for new opportunities.
Sana, composability is something that we need to discuss probably at some other webinar. So let's move on into this particular one. And I completely agree with you. When the wave is evolving, we don't want to get locked onto something that we cannot change.
Yes.
So agility is absolutely important. And in that particular wave that is coming up, one of the wave that is coming up is MCP, Model Context
Yes.
Protocols. So can you give us a brief about, again, what is MCP and why that would be interesting? And probably the digital directors should start thinking about MCP now. Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, absolutely. So your customers are going to start to interact with your brand outside of the
Mm,
website, outside of the mobile experiences, the visual mobile experiences. What's going to start to happen, and it's already happening, there's lots of millennials and Gen Zs that are browsing on, ChatGPT and Perplexity to find the products that they're looking for, to find the information that they're looking for. And the one thing that all of these agents have adopted, which is common, is a protocol called MCP. So MCP is the universal gateway to connect the enterprise systems and knowledge with the agents, right? So agents on their own don't have all of the knowledge of your business. They were trained on a certain set of data. A lot of times they don't actually tell you what that data really was either. But if, as an organization, as a brand, you want to expose your capabilities, your knowledge, your services, your APIs to these agents, you have to do that through the protocol called Model Context Protocol, because that's something that's been adopted by OpenAI, by Anthropic. It was introduced by Anthropic, then later adopted by OpenAI, adopted by Amazon. And at this point, I think we can safely say that that's going to be the way that agents are going to talk to your backend systems, right? So for digital directors, commerce directors, it's imperative that they take the capabilities that they have, the commerce and transactional capabilities and product discovery capabilities that they have built, and expose them in a standard way to any agents, whether the agents are coming from outside, right? Or you're building an agent within your own website, right? So your own shopping agent, your own support agent, it's best to expose all of those capabilities in a universal way so that when ChatGPT automatically starts to find MCP servers and discover MCP servers through the MCP registry, which is also starting to take shape and has already thousands of MCP servers on them. It's literally a matter of them turning it on. And all the MCP servers that are registered are automatically going to show up. And already, if I say, hey, I want to buy, a product from Macy's, the Macy's MCP server better be ready to respond and to take orders. And if it's not, it's a missed opportunity, because that is the way a lot of consumers are going to start to shop.
So now there are quite a bit of few directions I want to go from whatever you have
Sure.
said. But let's start with this. When we are talking about this MCP, I'm tying to another answer you gave a little earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What should MCP orchestrate? What it should, so you talked about capabilities and not really the brand's backend systems. So with respect to MCP, what should it expose to these AI agents, like say, for example, Claude or OpenAI, and what it should hide and what it should orchestrate? Can you double click on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the MCP server is meant to expose tools to the agents, right? So it's essentially tools are capabilities that brands want to expose to the agent. So if a customer asks a question, hey, I want to buy a product from this particular brand, then that brand has to expose some sort of product discovery capability to the agent through the MCP server. What the brand should not expose is, hey, I'm using Elasticsearch for my search index, and I'm using Fluent Commerce for my inventory, and I have Ikineo as my PIM. And so the product discovery capability is what should be abstracted away, as it's a layer of abstraction away from your various technologies, various ISVs that are combined together to deliver the product discovery experience. That's the level that you want to expose your capabilities, and not the individual raw APIs that build those capabilities. It gets even more dangerous, actually, when you want a personalized experience. And one of the systems in the back end is your CRM or your
Yep.
CDP. Would you want the agent to call your CDP and your CRM directly and know everything that they can know about your customer? Do you trust these agents? These are third-party agents that we're talking about. We're not talking about internal agents here. That it's a different question with that altogether. But third-party agents should not know the entire blueprint of your architecture. It is dangerous. It is not secure. It is not private. You're exposing competitive intelligence about the way you've built your backend architecture if you let them figure out all of the various raw APIs and how to connect to them. The other big issue with that is just plain performance, right? So, I mean, how agents can figure out that, hey, I need to call the profile API that connects to Microsoft Dynamics, and then I need to go call, your product discovery API, which calls Elasticsearch or Constructor or whatever your search platform is with a certain filter, right? It can figure it out. I'm not saying it can't. It's intelligent enough to figure it out, but should it figure that out, right? As a brand, do you want to give those agents that much control over the way you present your experience to your customers? You lose your entire competitive intelligence when you allow for that. And then finally, simply the cost of it, right? So if you're building an internal agent, a shopping agent, and you say, you know what, I'm just going to expose all the raw APIs to my shopping agent, you are paying for the LLM to figure that out. So the cost of you using an LLM to go figure out what those calls should be is 10 times greater than making that a deterministic orchestration flow, right? If you choose, I'm going to call this API, then this one, this API is going to lead into this third API, that's cheap, that's pennies versus dollars that you would be wasting on the LLM. So it just doesn't even make sense to call those raw APIs, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I can do, if you want me to actually share a quick diagram to illustrate exactly this point, right? So in this particular example, you have various front-end systems, and you have front-end touch points, and various back-end systems, right? So you have maybe Microsoft Dynamics to go get the customer's profile. You have Salesforce as your commerce platform, so you want to go get the cart. Let's say that somebody adds something to cart, a customer adds something to cart, and you want to just update it. Doing the update to cart requires multiple API calls to various backend systems like inventory, loyalty platform, your tax service, your shipping service, etc. Plus, of course, the cart and the profile, right? So those are the raw connections to your backend systems that you see at the bottom. What you want to expose to your agent is simply one agent API that abstracts all of that complexity away from it, right? If now ChatGPT, let's say, had access to this, and Perplexity also had access to that, those agents actually work differently as well, right? So each one of those agents is going to find its own way if you give them the path to all of your backend systems. So inconsistency in the customer experience is yet another reason why you don't want those agents to do this. You want one unified front that you present for your brand to any agent, and not just to agent, to any touch point whatsoever, no matter who is trying to build that touch point. So the MCP server, you can think of it as the universal backend for any front end. right? Any agent whatsoever. And that is, MCP server is really an orchestrated set of APIs that are stitched together, that are unified in a way to present the final experience to the customer.
Thanks. Thank you. So this particular diagram makes it clear. One of the questions that has come in again to the audience, thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, any comments, please share them on the chat, and then we will. I'll ask those questions to Sana, and then we'll discuss that. Sana, one of the questions that is asked on the chat is, can you contrast this to the SEOs and the robot.txt? When we talk about discoverability, how does that play out? And as I said, one of the big problems for the digital directors is discoverability. So how does this MCP and all of that, how does it play out? How is it different from SEO and robot.txt? Is it an extension? Can you talk to us a little more about that?
Yep, absolutely. So so far, I think the chat GPTs of the world, the OpenAIs of the world, have provided some direction to merchants on how exactly they should be exposing their commerce capabilities and their product feeds to the chat experience. They have not yet fully opened up the gates to the MCP server that you are likely starting to think about already, right? So that is a moving target. It was scheduled for fall of this year that they would open up and turn on the MCP registry that would get automatically discovered. So far, you still have the robots.txt, the LLMs .txt that allows these chatbots to go and index your content, to crawl your content, to crawl your data, but they are. It's not. It's not the capability to actually call actions on your backend systems is still not ready to go. What Shopify has done, interestingly, is that they have put a general purpose MCP server on top of all of their merchant implementations, right? So ChatGPT and Shopify already, or OpenAI and Shopify already have a partnership where they will likely be the first ones to start to offer agentic commerce experiences within ChatGPT. But eventually, other merchants or other vendors, such as Salesforce, Commerce Tools, Stripe, etc., they will all want a piece of that, right? Those are essentially the aggregators that are going to want to connect to ChatGPT and the like, so that the companies that are using their systems are also discoverable. So, and I'm not sure if I'm answering your question to the best.
No, I get it.
As best as I can, but it's not something that is fully ready to go, fully baked in. But as I said earlier, you want to catch the wave, right? You don't want to be starting to prepare for that when it's already out, because then it's already too late, right? So the faster you're ready with your commerce capabilities exposed using an MCP server, which we know is a path that everybody is looking at. It's just on the horizon. You want to be ready for that. If you're not, your competitors will be ready.
Fantastic.
And that's a problem.
I think the way I understand this, Asana, and you can correct me if my understanding is wrong, this sitemap and SEO, anything to do with SEO, all of those are information dissipation, like just passing out the information outside. But MCPs allow you to do actions on the stores themselves.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sana, you also, we touched upon in this particular thing also, that one thing that you touched upon, one of the challenges that digital directors face is they have to deal with plethora of tools. There's Fluent Commerce or Adobe Commerce or Shopify as a commerce. Then there is ERP, there is supply chain tool, and then all of these kinds of tools. Now, and the data is going to sit in silo in all of these things, and you have to bring all of this data. That in itself is a challenge now. Does MCP solve any of these problems? Now, I understand you are making a difference between an external agent and an internal agent. So does MCP play any role in kind of orchestrate the internal tools that I'm talking about? So is
So
there any play?
yeah, so there is a play, but I think there's also a little bit of confusion in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what the definition of MCP server itself really is.
Mm.
MCP is the MCP server is just exposing a set of capabilities or APIs to the front end. That's all MCP is
Mm.
server itself is built to do. But the actual orchestration, so what I was referring to earlier over here, the orchestration of all of these backend technologies, that itself is not done by MCP. You need an orchestration layer or a backend for front end type of capability that connects all the dots between all of these different systems and exposes one agent API to the front end, which an MCP server essentially is capable of exposing, right? So MCP on its own will not build that orchestration for you. You need a tool or a set of technologies to first connect all of your backends. You need to build a foundation for exposing those capabilities through the MCP server. And that is something that Consia, our company, is focused on, is the enablement of that foundation for agentic experiences. And that is the orchestration engine, the real-time API orchestration engine that sits in between the various front ends, including the agents, and the various backends that form all of the, or that expose all of the raw APIs that I referred to in the previous slide. And it's responsible for stitching API calls together.
Mm.
It's responsible for building those flows that, maybe first call the profile API, and then it calls the cart API, etc., to create that fully orchestrated capability that then eventually is exposed through an MCP server. One of the most important aspects, I think you kind of referred to this earlier in the conversation, is how do I know something is working? How do you audit what's actually going on? And so that orchestration layer, one of its key responsibilities is observability,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if agents are calling your backend systems or your capability level APIs, you want to know what impact it has on your entire tech stack, right? So the observability, which is one of the boxes in the orchestration engine, is able to give you a 360-degree view of
Mm.
all of the various backend APIs that were called, how long each of those calls took, were there errors, were there too many calls from certain types of agents, maybe there's some fraud going on and you need to detect what's happening there. So that's a key capability there that we need to look at.
Sana, the more you describe, one of the hype that's in the market is agentic AI, Gen AI, MCPs. They are going to take away the jobs of software engineers. The more you explained all of these things, what I'm getting is there is going to be a lot more need for deeper software engineering. You talked about
Yes,
observability, orchestration. So there's going to be a lot more need for deeper software engineering. That's what I'm getting at.
I completely agree. And I think that's a very, very important point. I think there's a lot of hype around vibe coding, out there. But when it comes to enterprise tech stacks and enterprise architecture, you definitely don't want to
Mm,
vibe code your way through that, because you need that governance, you need the auditability, you need the
yes.
observability. So just as much software engineering has been required for building other touch points and exposing your capabilities for websites and mobile and all the other touch points. In fact, if anything, I would say even more of that governance and scaffolding, and in turn, software engineering is required in the agentic commerce, because there's just so much that can go wrong. Now, there was a lot more predictability in the past, right? Where you have an API call that comes in from the front end, you know exactly who's making that call and why they're making that call. Now, agents are calling your systems, and you need to figure out what's the best way to
Mm,
respond to each of those systems within the right context that that the agent is providing to your MCP server. So a lot more engineering, a lot more thinking and designing needs to happen. And as we know, vibe coding is not the way to design your architecture. You may take specific functions and say, go and build that for me, as long as the inputs and outputs for those functions is well defined. You can trust vibe coding to take care of that. But you still need architects, you still need product owners who really understand what the experience should look like for the customers, and really define that in the most specific way possible, so that so that the overall system integrity stays intact.
okay. Thank you for addressing that particular question, Sana. There's an interesting question on the chat. By implementing this MCP server and exposing it to the other third-party AI agents like OpenAI and Claude, Anthropic, and even Google, are we not the digital directors? Are we not handing over the customer relationship to those agents, and we will lose that particular control?
It depends on the way you implement it, right? So if you did it in the way that we were talking about earlier, where you just expose your entire backend systems to the agents and let them, you know, ask for the customers' usernames and passwords, and get their information and pass it on to each of your backend systems directly, absolutely, you would be
Mm,
handing over control. We don't want that to happen. But if you create if your MCP server only exposes just the right amount of data and information to these agents, and is able to capture the user's activity and so
mm,
you keep the relationship with your customer, you stay responsible for them authenticating, authorizing to go call up all those backend systems, then absolutely you can protect that customer relationship, but also protect your brand experience. You have full control over your brand experience. You know exactly what that product carousel that shows up on ChatGPT should contain. You should not be giving that control to ChatGPT
correct.
itself, right?
Correct. Yeah. So I think since it's an emerging field, there's quite a bit of experimentation that's happening. But I think over the period, as we start implementing, and Shopify is implementing, and then the marketplaces are implementing, I think
Mhm.
a pattern will emerge, and then that will tell us
Yes,
more about how this can happen. And obviously, all of the e-com directors, they want to have that particular relationship with the customers. They don't want to lose that. So that's gonna.
absolutely.
Uh, while we are talking about it again, there's a question on the chat. Uh, Thank you so much for these questions. To the audience participants, if you have further questions, please feel free to put them on the chat, and we will continue to discuss them. Sana, we talked about, I think this is why the customer relationship, I think from that particular point of view, also the observability matters. That is when we will be able to say, okay, where it breaks, where a particular customer experience breaks, what can be done, what are the errors that are coming in, how those errors can be tracked and closed, All of those things can be done. In that particular context also, what governance frameworks, or how can they think about the governance as a whole when they are starting to implement MCP servers?
So I think that the governance structure is nothing really different from
Mm.
how you're building the rest of your architecture as well. As long as you are creating a box around your architecture, right?
Mm-hmm.
You already likely have within your tech stack a set of observability tools, right? You're gonna, instead of someone just clicking around on your website, now API calls are being made to your backend system. So you have to make sure that all of those calls that are coming in are being logged, and that you can report on what capabilities were accessed, what was the context of the customer at the time that that capability was accessed. Because when ChatGPT or another agent makes a call to the MCP server, they're also passing in the context of the customer along with it, right? So you need to be able to have logging capabilities within your orchestration layer that allows you to capture exactly what was going on and who, what customer was making that call, where were they, what region, what customer segment, etc., and then use that knowledge to learn about your customers better and continuously build that relationship
Okay.
with your customers.
Now, that's again another question. In a multi-channel setup, uh, how can the AI agents do personalization with all of the contextual signals that are coming in?
Mm-hmm.
The contextual the context could be the location and all the other signals that are coming in. How can this happen in real time? Is there a challenge, or is it an extension of what they technically they have implemented? What do you think about it? What have you seen, Sana?
Yeah. So as I said, you are getting the context of the customer, like their location, region, potentially, and actually a lot more than just that now. You're actually getting the full query that they are asking of the ChatGPT agent. So that query in itself carries a lot of weight. It carries a lot of intelligence around what the customer is actually looking for. They're essentially having a discussion with you, and telling you what they're,
Mm.
I'm looking for a dress for my sister's wedding, for instance. So you already know a lot more about the customer because they're asking a question in a very conversational and in a very personal way. So if you're capturing that query that comes in, then it's up to you to actually have further intelligence built into your MCP server or your orchestration layer that allows you to further extract out meaning and context from that query, right? So one of the boxes here that you see behind the wall is AI-powered reasoning, right?
Mm.
So you should be able to take the um, the actual query, pass it through potentially an LLM that you're either hosting internally or are subscribing to, and using it to further extract meaning from that query. And then if you can do that, then you can pass that context to a rule-based engine that deterministically decides based on marketing input and business input, deterministically decides what experience we should show to the customer. That rule-based engine, there's a reason for that, because we need that to allow the business users um, to have control over the experience that is being presented back to the customer. But the AI-powered reasoning is to understand what the customer wants in the first place and map that intent to a rule, to a deterministic rule that allows you to control your brand experience.
Okay. Sana, let's talk about So we have talked about all of these concepts and everything and how people are going about this. If a CPO and a CTO, I want you to address both the kind of target markets. If they are thinking of implementing MCP servers, agentic AI in general and MCP servers, what roadmap would you give? How should they go about thinking about this particular, implementing this particular feature for them? So assume that they have an e-commerce store, they have all of the pieces in place, they are selling on their own website and then probably multi-channel. They have a few other things as well. So mobile app, a web application, in-store, POS, all of this they have, all of this setup is there. They want to tap into this particular market as well, or rather discoverability channel as well. Both the CTOs and the CPOs, obviously the answer is going to be different, but also there's going to be an overlap. How should they think about what is the roadmap they can lay out? Talk to me about this, please.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the answer will depend on where they currently are. I mean, have they implemented a monolithic, all-in-one platform in the back end? Is it a composable tech stack with a whole bunch of different pieces? I mean, even within the the monolithic stack, you still have capabilities that you need to be able to expose, right? So you need to start thinking start thinking about the ROI and start actually getting on with the agentic commerce before, let's say, ChatGPT and others start to fully allow you to expose your capabilities. You still maybe want to build a shopping agent on your own website. That could be a starting point, because you want to start to see, can I actually take my existing tech stack and have a conversation with that tech stack, even if it's on my own website, right? So you need to see what is the experience that you want to expose to that shopping agent or a support agent. Do you want them to be able to discover the products only? Do you want them to be able to purchase the products, or that purchase experience is going to go to your regular cart page and they're going to continue on from there? So we need to start to break out the capabilities that you want to see within the chat experience. And I would suggest you start with product discovery, because without doing any kind of discovery, you can't really buy anything anyway. So that would be one capability. So you have your either you have a search engine behind the scenes that is that already exists, or you have a commerce engine, commerce platform that already exposes a search index. So that could be a good starting point. Now, in order to expose the product catalog to agents, one of the things that is quite important and that a lot of people don't understand is that it's important to have a vector index behind the scenes. Just a keyword-based search, which most search platforms offer right now, or what most commerce platforms offer at this point, are not sufficient to understand the customer's query, because now we're giving them full ability to ask the question in whatever way they want. So what they're asking for may not be in your current keyword index. You can't search for it word by word anymore. So you need to translate your product catalog into a semantic index that can map more easily to the conversation style that the customer is going to have through the chat experience, right? So that I think generally exposing the product discovery capabilities and augmenting it with a vector-based search index behind the scenes is key. The second step then may be that you want to take the results that the customer is getting and allow them to actually add it to cart. Now you need to start thinking of a lot more sophisticated. Now you need to think about all the various back-end systems that are involved in just updating the cart itself. Is it a commerce engine? Is it a tax service? Is there a shipping service involved? There's payment involved. So that's where you start to really go to that next frontier a full agentic commerce experience offered through chat. And that's where you really have to know and think about, does my current tech stack allow me to expose first the APIs, the raw APIs? Are they even there? Right? If the raw APIs don't exist, I think we have a bigger problem, right? You need those at the very least. And then you start thinking about building the orchestration layer on top of that, that should act as the backend for your agents. So you abstract the complexity and the nuance of your backend systems, put it in a clean, orchestration layer, and then expose that through MCP server as your tools, which then your on-site agent, the shopping agent, the support agent can call directly. And that gives you a good starting point to test out your agentic capabilities, because once ChatGPT is ready to call your MCP server, then at least you've already built a shopping agent internally using the right architecture, which you can now expose to external agents as well.
Makes sense. One of the questions that has come in is, will this orchestration piece and then every other thing that we are talking about for an e-commerce director or a CPO, will it become another black box? Again, the concern is, will I lose control over my customers, my user experience, customer
Absolutely.
experience? So will I lose that particular control? Will it become another black box?
So that is exactly what you want to avoid. That is exactly the thing you want to avoid. And I think what we've done, a lot of brands have done so far, when they build their backends for front ends, when they build that layer, the controller layer in between their front ends and their back ends, a lot of that logic is custom coded. A lot of it is hard to debug. It's hard to observe as well. And so our goal when we built our the universal MCP server and the orchestration engine was to actually break it up into individual modules that are observable, that are understandable, that are declarative, right? So when you build a flow, such as the one that I was showing you earlier, within the flow, each of those boxes that you see are called components. Each component is declarative. It has a certain set of inputs, a certain set of outputs. You can see what the configuration for each component is in a JSON format, right? So you can actually export the entire configuration of the orchestration flow in a format that is documentable, is observable, is auditable. You understand what exactly is going on in a very atomic way in every part of the flow, which is not something that is done that way when you build it yourself. When you build it in a completely custom way, the calls to your Salesforce backend and the calls to your Fluent Commerce backend are not individually auditable. They're not individually observable. Other than by a developer at the browser layer, you can see the network traffic that is going back and forth, but you can't really say, the last 1,000 calls that went to Salesforce were 500 milliseconds. And here is a specific call, and this was a specific response that came back from Salesforce. So if you build it in a declarative, low-code fashion, you can easily reason about what exactly is going on. You can easily document your flows. In fact, you can use AI to document a lot of these flows. Because it's good at understanding JSON and interactions between, or JavaScript generally. It's very good at learning it and applying documentation to it. And it's just a lot more future-proof, because you could take one of those backend systems, like, let's say Salesforce, and in the future, maybe you want to replace it with another commerce engine. So now you're not rewiring everything. You are making those changes at a very component level. Like get cart needs to change. Instead of calling Salesforce, we're now going to call commerce tools potentially, or the other way around. I don't want to say that one is better than the other. It really doesn't matter to me, or I don't think it should matter really, as long as those capabilities are exposed through APIs, RESTful or GraphQL. You should be able to quickly swap things in and out, and that is the promise of composability, right?
Yes.
It's all about like not being locked into a specific set of vendors. And so you want to build that layer becomes one of the most important layers in the architecture. And unless you can keep it composable itself, yes, I agree. It absolutely becomes another monolith, and that's the problem with a lot of the architectures that have been built in composable stacks. That layer has become unwieldy, and it has become another monolith. So, which completely flies in the face of composability. It really is not composable. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
It has been interesting conversation. The questions are keeping on coming in, but
Okay.
because of the paucity of time, Sana, last question on this. As a busy CEO and a technologist, fast forward a couple of years, how do you think MCP and agentic AI would affect and the e-commerce? So how would you be shopping in a couple of years?
I can easily see myself shopping fully in ChatGPT. I can see that. I mean, I use it daily for various things. The first thing that I go to when I want to compare products, I'll actually go to ChatGPT and say, give me all the options and tell me what I should buy. But more importantly, I think the younger generation is
Yes.
even more likely to use agentic platforms. I can see them getting on their phone and just asking Siri, can you help me find the AirPods, the latest model of the AirPods at a Best Buy near me, right? Or another electronics store near me, and make sure that it's available. And can you actually just put it in my cart but let me authorize the payment before we're done with it. So I can see that shift within the next 2 to 3 years. And what that means for brands is that they have to be ready, their architectures have to be ready to allow for those commerce and transactional capabilities coming in, with the requests coming in from agents and all sorts of places, whether it's social commerce, whether it's agents. There's always been the vision of omnichannel.
Yes.
And I think for the first time, omnichannel is actually taking hold in the best way possible. And we have to be ready for
Thank
that
you.
shift.
The use case that you talked about, the younger generation doing all of that, I think that is what we need to get ready for. Sana, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We loved it. I can see even questions coming in even now. So we loved it. To all the participants, thank you so much for coming and joining us in this particular conversation. I hope this conversation has given you both the inspiration and also practical roadmap and the next steps as you think about building commerce that thinks, acts, and delivers. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Thank you.